Good evening, and today we are going to be talking about this whole campaign that we are running. Enfold is running in this month of November, and we have chosen November because 19 November is the World Day for Prevention of Child Abuse. So every year we do some awareness activities, and last year we had done awareness activities in malls, fashion mobs, and then we had gone to police stations. We have visited 60 police stations, and we have sensitized all the police people about child sexual abuse and how they can protect their children. So we put in the flyers on that, and we were very happy with that. So this year what we have looked at is role of the bystander, because beginning with the last year's case in Delhi and up till now, a lot of things are happening in public places where the public is just not doing anything or outright indifferent. So a lot of things we feel could be prevented, can be prevented by the bystander. And the bystander, when you hear the word bystander, you hear of it as a public, in a public place. But for me, bystander is anybody in whose presence something is happening, something which is not okay, inappropriate, wrong, or unacceptable, or outright abuse or harassment is happening, and that person is not doing anything. So that can be a situation even in a house, in a home. Okay? So you may be the adult in the house, in a family gathering or a party, or even in your own home, you're just seeing another adult hugging or doing something with the kid, and the kid is obviously uncomfortable, and you are just doing it's all right. You're not doing anything about it. So you are a bystander over there. So this whole campaign is the role of the bystander in prevention specifically of sexual abuse, but since it is child abuse, so it includes everything else, but especially sexual abuse, not only of children, but in the children and adults and youth and everything. So we started this out in we thought it is good to involve school children, because any habit you want to bring in, anything you want to bring in, is good to start with children. So we involved children from 7th standard onwards. We sent these posters out, asking them for their ideas, and we have received so many. So their ideas about what is the role of a bystander, what they should do or should not do, write poems, write your drawings, whatever, send it in. And then we would display those, and as well as our own posters, on the 19th of November and on 23rd and 24th. Now there was a lot of discussion about how we will display and where we will display. The idea was to reach out to the public, the general public. So we decided not to confine ourselves in any enclosed space, like an exhibition hall or somewhere where very few people would walk in or walk out. So we are looking at doing this in public places where the volunteers can stand with the posters held in their hands, and we posted that some that students have sent, some that we have made, and you're standing outside maybe malls, railway stations, bus stations, outside the college when the college gets over, places like those, markets, and you are engaging the people who are milling around in this. Do you think you would act if you saw something? And you could engage them in various small conversations. A very common thing we hear is, "I'm scared to act." Why? Because in the papers you read about all these people who turn upon you when you try to intervene. But the point we don't realize is that what gets reported in the newspaper is that one case where the abuser was carrying a knife or a gun or something like that. But most of the times it's not like that. The guy in the bus who is harassing the girl sitting right next to you and is rubbing against her is not carrying any weapon. Nothing. There is no danger to you. So for most cases, the bystander can intervene without any harm to themselves. That's one thing. The second thing we need to bring out is that there is a very interesting phenomenon of the diffusion of responsibility. or it's also called the bystander effect, in which more the number of people watching an abuse happening, the less likely that any one of them will interfere. So if you are the only one watching something, you are like, your conscience is called into to act, and then you are likely to do something. But if there are 20 others, then you are thinking, should I? Nobody else is doing anything. Why should I? There must be something in this. Because remember, you are going into a risky situation. The abuse is a risky situation. It's not a happy situation where you're just joining in some laughter or something like that. So when you are going into a risky situation, it's directly at conflict with your instinct to survive. Now if there are 20 others, now you're wondering, why should I risk myself? Why is not he? He is older, or he is bigger, or she seems to have more experience. Whatever. So there is that element of diffusion of responsibility. So we need to address those things as well. That knowing that itself will stimulate you to act. Nobody is acting because of this bystander effect. So because of the bystander effect, I should not just keep quiet. I should take action. Because you are aware of this effect. Yeah? You are aware of this effect. So this is what we want to do on 19th, 23rd and 24th during the daytime of public places. In the area which is close to your homes, you get into groups of 3 or 4 people and you have the posters with you, and if it is possible, one of the Enfold people would be there with you, but it may not happen. Because we want to really reach out to as many parts, as many public places in Bangalore as possible. And we are just a handful of people there. So that is one thing. Another thing that we are looking at is sensitizing the parents, the medical professionals, medical workers on the subtle symptoms of sexual abuse. The children don't tell their parents about it. They don't tell. The girl will come home and she will not talk anything about what happened in the bus. Because she feels shy or ashamed or guilty, somebody will blame me for various reasons. And all the shame, guilt and all that parents have put in the child's mind right from the child, from the age when they were 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, shame, coffee, shame, dirty boy, you're touching, go wash your hands. So all that shame, dirt, all that has got attached to these parts of the body. And they don't know how to tell. So they don't tell. But they suffer. They suffer all the more because the abuser is going scot-free. Nobody is saying anything to the abuser. He is the most respected, or he or she is the most respected person in the house, comes and the child is asked to serve the person. Say, namaste, please sit down. That kind of thing. So, but the child suffers because of all this, and it comes out in various mental, physical, emotional symptoms. So, could you name some of the symptoms that you think the child may come up with? Withdrawal, yes.
Low self-esteem.
Low self-esteem, very poor body image, very poor self-esteem, and that self-esteem shows up in self-confidence. So the child's self-confidence is low, self-respect is low, the child is crouched up, looking scared in the face, becomes prey to many more abusers. What else might happen? Sleeplessness, depending on how the abuse is happening, where the abuse is happening. It could be a continuous over the years. The child can grow up like that and become an adult facing abuse every day. Yes.
It might also become the perpetrator, right?
Rarely, they may. What they have found mostly is that girl victims of abuse may show sexualized behavior sometimes. And because of that sexualized behavior, it may come across as abuse to some people, but generally they don't become child sexual abusers themselves. They just show over sexualized behaviors. The boy child of abuse has little more tendency to may become an abuser, mainly also because it's again a sexualized behavior, and if he's 14 or 15 and he's acting it out on a 5 or 8-year-old, then that's abuse. Shravan would like to say something to this?
Yeah, what they've usually found is that children who have been sexually abused go ahead to have a lot of trauma and long-term effects, but it's unusual that they become abusers themselves. In fact, what they found in a lot of places where people are working against sexual abuse, a lot of people have been abused. So it's more that they have felt the abuse occurred and then they felt that you're not going to let this happen to others. So it's more that they become protective. The only thing in abuse is that children who have been severely emotionally abused rather one should say that sexual abusers themselves have had severe emotional neglect as children, and so therefore the ability to feel another one's pain, to be empathetic, that doesn't come in. They're also physically violent. There is a concept of intergenerational abuse, where we've had one or two cases where the child tells her mother, I got abused, and the mother says, these things happen, it happened to me too, and I survived fine, so it's okay. So that having been unable to cope, they're also unable to protect their children from
So when you say emotional abuse, what exactly constitutes emotional?
Emotional abuse is any sort of act of omission or commission which causes trauma to the child in her feelings or his feelings. So we're looking at things like comparisons, neglect, putting a child down, humiliating the child, making the child feel small, disrespecting the child, making the child feel unwanted. These are all things which in a small childhood develop your self-esteem, and if they're not that, you feel totally emotionally neglected.
This poster is done by a child, and this is talking about emotional abuse. So what she has written out here, if you could read it out,
You're stupid, you're fat, you're ugly, you're not my child, just a burden. Shut up, weirdo, loser, I hate you. I wish that you were dead, you're worthless, freak, crybaby. What is the point of living? What happened to dreams, hope, happiness, friendship, family, trust and faith? And they said it should not hurt to be a child. Step up against child abuse.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's emotional abuse. Probably also some element of physical abuse. Physical definitely. Sexual could be also as well.
Just putting down children in front of them.
Yes, putting down children. So all this comes out in various ways, and then physical symptoms like headaches, stomach aches, itching, burning, urinary infections, stuff like that, or just ill, frequently falling ill, frequently getting hurt, frequently wanting to, escape and be by themselves. So they keep visiting pediatricians or keep visiting doctors because the ailment is somewhere else, the hurt is somewhere else, it's not healed, and it keeps showing up like this. So we have also got posters ready for educating the parents and the medical personnel on these subtle, very common things, falling grades, withdrawal, suddenly don't want to go anywhere, or don't want to go to a particular relative's or friend's house, not wanting to play, wearing layers of clothing, being very ugly, wanting to be very ugly, to keep that abuser away, those kind of things.
These are all symptoms which can be sexual abuse, may not be. It can be emotional abuse. It could be a sibling who's born and the child suddenly feels very neglected. It could be a new school, new class teacher. Sometimes children are so attached to a teacher and she suddenly leaves and they have a new teacher coming in. So these are things which we consider suspicious of abuse. But very often when they're constantly happening, just like we would look at, say, worms or amoebiasis for chronic tummy upsets, we would also look at sexual abuse as a possible cause for one of these. The problem is both in the medical fraternity and in lay people, the ability to say the word sexual is very difficult. So a lot of the times the question doesn't get asked, and so it won't get the answer.
So we are making them aware of that. So these posters need to be taken to pediatricians, nursing homes, hospitals in your locality. You don't have to go very far. Go to your locality, speak to the medical people there, speak to the medical officer or pediatrician, whoever is willing to give you little time. Go and say, would you like to put up these posters in your camp? And then put them up.
These posters get exhibited in the hospitals because I had an experience. We went to take class in one of the apartments I told you, right? So we put the notice like teach your child to be safe from child sexual abuse. Just that notice, and after that, the next day many people were coming and complaining what you have put in that notice board, and we actually couldn't do the session just because of that word being there. But this being in the hospitals and all, it become more a topic which people can communicate. So I really feel it will be that kind of a shift also will help.
It's very strange that they don't want the word sexual in the notice board, but every day big letters, words coming in the newspaper in their home, and the 5-year-old child reading and learning, words beginning with S and R and all that is really very hypocritical. So that is also something we want to do. We want to bring it out in public places.
Acceptable.
Yes, the word should become acceptable. So counseling centers, any place where people have it. That's about it. You had a question.
So my question was, how does one balance between being proactive and being overprotective?
Okay, this is not for this campaign, but as such.
Generally, when you say the symptoms are might be potentially symptoms of abuse, it shouldn't happen that the child is so overprotected that it's scared to step out.
I think we should look at it very simply. We don't need to put sex into a different pocket somewhere. If we look at, say, fire in the kitchen, or if we say crossing the road, do we ever say overprotection? We just say, hello, I don't want my child getting hurt, so I tell them about these. And you don't start teaching a child to cross the road when they're 10, when you're actually going to allow them to cross the road. You start at the age of 2.5, 3. When you're walking the kid across the road, you say, okay, look to the left, to the right, to the left again. See, there's no vehicle, let's cross over. And over many, many years of doing it with the parents, that the child will finally say, now I can cross the road on my own. So the same way, if we talk about sex as something normal and healthy, and the body parts as one part of the whole body, which just like when we talk to children about keeping our body healthy, we say, your eyes and nose and your mouth, your ears are parts which are really very sensitive, much more because they're not covered by skin to that level. So when you wash yourself, you use soap yourself. We're not going to pour soap on you because these are areas which are sensitive. I may hurt you. Nobody should put soap on your face, you do it yourself, unless you're really sick. Similarly, the place where you pass urine and motion from is also a sensitive part of the body, so only you wash yourself. So it's very simple, it's a place you keep clean, you keep it, take care of it, and the different functions come up at different times. So my eyes are used from the time I'm born, but my other parts I may use much later, but I respect every part of it. So there's no anxiety there. So if my child suddenly runs running around without any clothes on at 3 or 4 or 5, I'm not going to say dirty she. I'm going to say, will you put on some clothes? You're going to be chill, you're going to catch a chill. I'm not worried because a lot of the times the sexual thoughts are in the adult's mind. The child doesn't have it at all. It's the same thing with fire. I use fire and it's there and the child sees it, but I don't hide fire from the child because the child will try something. Because it's something which is part of our lives. So I say, this is the fire, don't come close when I'm cooking, don't come in here, it's dangerous, it's hot. And then when they say, I want to light the fire, you say, only after you're 10, and I'm going to watch you when you light the match and start it, and then after that you go ahead. So there are so many functions in life that the child would do later, but we talk about it earlier, and we don't create shame or guilt attached to it.
And that's really important. Mindset change, right?
Yes, it is. It's the mindset change in the adult's mind.
Yeah, that's right.
But traditionally, like Indian families, when some kid runs around naked, the first thing that comes out of the mouth is shame, puppy shame, like you said. So you're putting on already that feeling that it is wrong. Everything is wrong concerned with sexuality, right? So that's very hard to change the whole generation.
For that, teaching, how can we teach children the sexuality etiquettes? How can we teach our children personal safety? How can we teach them sexuality etiquettes? So that begins at 1.5, 2 years of age when you are starting to tell them the body parts. And because parents find it difficult, they don't know what to say, we have these posts, these flyers, which are aimed as a parent. And it says, I will break the silence. I will break the silence by naming the part. What are you going to name it? most parents would be uncomfortable using the scientific English names for it, or even the scientific name in your own mother tongue. You would be uncomfortable with it. Okay, then forget it. Don't use those words. But please also don't use words like flower, shame, or some such thing. Call it your susu place, your potty place. If you can't say anything else, this is the susu jaga, this is the potty jaga. Because susu and potty are words that you are very comfortable using from day one. Right? Just name it. So now what happens is the child says, okay, mama and dada have named this part. So they are not ignoring it. There is no silence about it. Then you teach them the second rule. In fact, the first rule is we keep certain parts of the body covered, and those are this part and the upper part later on. But this part we keep it covered not because there is any shame in the body, but because it's a social rule. If we were living in a tribal place where we didn't wear any clothes, we won't wear them, and we won't die of shame. Yeah? So there is no shame in any part of our body. We keep it covered because it's a social rule. So keep it covered with it. So instead of saying shame, shame, poppy shame, you say go wear your chaddi, wear your pants, wear your shorts, whatever. Second rule we teach them is we don't touch this part in public, in front of others. So if you find a child touching in front of others, you say, don't touch, I told you. So it leaves it open to touch in private. That is fine. So you have to be very careful what you are saying. You don't touch it in front of others. Third rule, we don't talk about it casually in front of others. So if you are teaching these three rules, you have not used the word sex, you have not used any uncomfortable word, you can do it. And parents need to learn new skills. We didn't know how to use a remote or the computer, we learned it. These touch phones, haven't we learned it? There was a need. Now child sexual abuse is so common, 53%, 1 in 2, according to Government of India study. Isn't it time parents learned how to protect their children? They can't hide behind, I don't know what to say. My parents never told me. You better learn the skill, otherwise your child will get abused and won't be able to tell you. So they put shame and guilt over there.
It's also about saying that we don't touch ourselves in public because that's just a social rule about it. Dogs and cats don't have a problem, they don't wear clothes, they're not bothered. But also, we don't touch anybody else in this area and nobody should touch us in this area. And it's the same way as saying nobody should throw mud in your eye, and you shouldn't try and put a sharp pencil in your ear or your nose and things like that. There are certain things we tell children that you need to be careful about. Because you don't use earbuds and things like that because they're not safe. So it's just the same question of safety, protection, not shame and guilt. So because the biggest question always arises that a 4-year-old boy, if a child, another classmate or older boy pinches him or pushes him off a gym, will come running to tell somebody. But if that same senior boy touches him in his private parts, he doesn't tell. How did a 4-year-old child get to know that this is something I can't speak about? And the message is given from the age of 1.5 onwards.
So that is the rule. So first my own body rules, and then I respect the other person. So I don't remove their clothes from these parts of the body. I don't touch them in these parts of the body, and I don't talk casually about their private parts. So that happens when the child is little older, 2.5, 3, going to or 4, 5, whatever age you want to give it. So, and the other part of shame and guilt is that shame and guilt belongs to the abuser. So we need to name and shame the abuser. That helps in healing of the child. Because our shame is not in our body, our shame is the way we use our bodies. What am I doing? Am I using my body in such a way that is respectful, that is constructive, that is helpful of others? Or am I using my body to destroy, to dominate, to abuse? That will give us either pride or shame. So if somebody is abusing another person, removing their clothes, touching them, or in any such way abusing them, that person needs to be shamed, not the target of abuse. And the target of abuse needs to raise their voice and call attention to what's happening and assert their right to be present wherever they are present, in whichever way they are, whatever clothing they are. They have the right to be there as much as anybody else. They have a right to safety, they have a right to dignity, right to life. So that is the campaign that we are running. So these posters go to nursing homes, we have posters going to the public, and we are also looking at getting permission to put them up in bus stations and the bus depots. Already we have permission to put them up in the metro stations. We have 6 metro stations. So we have permission to put them up for 2 days on 19th and 20th.
They won't talk to their parents, they will not talk to their teachers about it. Is there somebody outside?
So if somebody is being abused and they is facing abuse and they don't know whom to talk to, then maybe Shobha want to talk to that.
1098, there is a number, child line number, it's there on the posters. It's 1098. 1098 is a child line number. Child line was a foundation, Child Line India Foundation was started in Bombay and it's been running now. It's taken over by the Ministry of Women and Child and it's running in almost all the cities in India, larger cities. It's in there in all states. And in Karnataka there are almost 92 towns and cities which have it. That means if any child, what happens is a local NGO is working and they take the calls. So 24/7, when you call from a line, landline usually, and you call 1098, somebody will answer the call. If it's a problem with the child, is a question or a doubt, they answer it. If the child needs to be rescued, is in a state, a domestic labor, or I am as a neighbor know that there's somebody in the next house who's got a child working there, I can call 1098 and report it, and they will send somebody to come over, check, and if needed, rescue the child.
This also what Enfold does within Bangalore is sometimes help with counseling, many times help with counseling, sometimes help in other ways as well because Dr. Sharma herself, I like to say she's the only doctor in India who got trained through UNICEF. She went to Philippines, got trained in setting up hospital-based child response units, where if a child is facing abuse and the family wants some intervention or some help, they don't have to take the child to a police station at all. They take the child to a hospital where children are anyway going. And in Bangalore, we have 5 decent beds already working. That is Ramaya, Baptist, Bowling, Kim's, and
St. John's,
and one
Vaidehi and Rana.
Vaidehi and Rana. These places, the doctors have already been trained. Doctors, counselors, social workers, the local police people, the concerned lawyers, and social workers. They have been trained by Dr. Shaibat through Enfold and UNICEF and the government of Karnataka. They have been trained to interview the child in a sensitive manner, at the same time collect all evidence in a way that is legally admissible in the court of law and won't be thrown out by some cross-examination and stuff like that, and offer all kinds of support that might be required. So if the parents want to pursue further, they want to make an FIR, they want to carry on, that is possible. If they want to go for counseling, that is possible. Medical help, surgical help, whatever is needed, that is possible. So those kind of units are one first of its kind in Bangalore.
Also, the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012 has now stated very clearly that a child who has been sexually abused does not ever need to go to a police station. So if a parent reports it or somebody reports it, the police officer, not in uniform, preferably a lady police officer, not less than the rank of sub-inspector, has to go wherever the child is comfortable. So the child comes to a hospital, the police inspector will come there. If the child prefers to be seen at home, they will come there. Whichever is comfortable. The child does not ever need to step into a police station at all. What you could do is just call 1098 because they have the legal, the social networking, they work with the police, they work with the judiciary. They also have the people who can go and rescue the child. They have legal sanction to go and pick up a child who has been sexually abused. If it's a question of a family member who's abusing the child, then the problem is that we should not take a child away from support. Originally the thing was child is being sexually abused, take the child and put the child into an institution, which is horrifying. And the thing is over here, what the child says is, I was being abused, I complained, and now you take me away from your family and the abuser is still sitting there. So you punish the child for having reported. So trying to right that wrong. Now the idea is to work with the family, bring the family to support the child, because sometimes the parents are consumed with guilt that I couldn't protect my child and things like that. So how to help the child heal, how to get the abuser away from the child and the child into a safe environment without disturbing the child's daily life. Why should the child miss a month of school because the child complained about somebody else abusing him or her? The abuser his life should be disrupted, not the child's. So as far as possible, normalization of the child's life, counseling over a steady long-term period, support to the family, all the things which are needed should be done. So that's a very long process. It's just recently started in India. So there are a lot of hitches, but it's definitely moving better now than maybe 10 years ago.
And that kind of counseling is something that Enfold can do, and we do with families and with the targets of abuse. Our number is 9900094251.
It's on the website.
The idea is always take help from experts. So we normally, since the last 12 years, we always work with psychologists, child psychiatrists, police, social workers, people who have worked in this area for many years, because nobody has all the expertise required to manage one case.
Dr. Shekhar Sheshadri from Enhance is one big support. So on 19th, 23rd and 24th, when we are holding posters which are talking about child abuse and how you can prevent it and what it is about. So you're holding that, somebody comes up, so you will talk about child abuse, what it is, you have physical, emotional and sexual kinds of abuse, and then how sexual abuse is the one we have in focus because that is silent and people don't talk about it. It's high time we started talking about it because so many percentage of our children are facing it, so many of our women are facing it, being harassed. So would you like to, if you notice something like that going on in your vicinity, would you like to step up and say, hey, what's happening over there? Stop it. This is not okay. Condemn the act. Interrupt the act. Condemn the act. Intervene and say, I don't like this. Move away. Okay? And then inform and carry on with that. So this is very specific things that you can ask the passerby, would you like to intervene if you saw something happening? And you can address their concerns about that. Do you feel afraid? Do you feel shy? Do you don't want to get involved? What are your emotions over there which prevent you from going in? And don't you think that we all need to overcome those emotions and act? Because tomorrow it could be us. That is that much. And if there is more discussion on sexual abuse, then if you watch this video again, we will put it up on YouTube. If you watch this video again, you will get all that we talked about: shame, guilt, this and that. Anything else?
And role of the bystander is not only that. Even talking about it is the role of the bystander. Talking to people that this is an issue, you can act on it, and it's not the victim's shame. All that is the role of a bystander. When we spread this message, that also we are doing as instead of just watching this and watching the TV and just sitting quietly, that's also not action.
Two things. One is how change can start when we can start speaking about it and allow people to report it.
Yeah.
The other thing is a concept of zero tolerance of sexual harassment. So when usually in families, like whenever we've seen it in a case in a family, one person has abused many children. And what happens is someone knows somewhere or has a feeling like this person who holds the children too tight and the child is squirming, uncomfortable. It's happening and the child realizes none of the other adults are helping them. Something as simple as cheeks being pulled. Children hate it. Now I would go and pull my boss's cheeks or my aunt's cheeks like that tight and hard to show my affection, but I somehow feel I can do it to a child. So when we say please don't do that to children, they don't like it. We are starting to create zero tolerance for transgression of personal boundaries, and that goes on to personal spaces. So even in an office, a person who's, now it's become this very weird thing in sexual harassment in offices that if somebody says anything, you're being too sticky. Oh, why are you reporting it? You're not fun person. But no, this is zero tolerance. You say when you target somebody, you don't. So you start off with comments, and then those people find comments are not being stopped. Then they go to the next part of touching, and then they go further. So the point is zero tolerance. So two things. One is helping bring it out, and the other is also saying no allowance of even the minor transgressions.
And this thing about what would you do in a family situation, I was taking a session for teachers, and there I said, your mother has been pulling your child's cheeks, and the child says, I don't like it. She has told you, or told the grandmother. So what do you do in that situation? So they said, we will tell the child that, Mom, your grandmother loves you, that's why she is doing that. I said, okay, but why would you not tell your mother not to do it? No, I don't want to hurt her feelings. I said, okay, so for the sake of your 50, 60-year-old mother, you don't want to hurt her feelings. What about that 6-year-old child? Shouldn't that 60-year-old woman have learned how to handle her feelings? Doesn't she have better understanding? Why are you telling this 5 or 6-year-old to adjust and understand and make space for this 60-year-old person, and you're not telling that 60-year-old person? So as a mother or a father, my primary responsibility is to my child, not to any other person, because that any other relative or friend is an adult, is much older. They can fend for themselves. If I abandon this child, how is the child going to survive? Who is going to stand up on behalf of the child? Now I stand up for my father-in-law, for my mother-in-law, for my mother, my father, my uncle, my brother, my sister, my friend, my this. What about your child? That is your primary responsibility. Hospital, nursing home to a doctor. You will not be talking about anything to do with all these things, because they know more. Whatever they know is much more than the volunteer knows. So you could just be giving these posters and requesting them to put them up in the so usually we would prefer in a waiting area, so where the parents can see it. So we won't say we are trying to educate you. No, we are not trying to educate the doctors, but we want to reach out to the parents, the other people there, paramedical staff, because they are also parents.
So do you go to the doctors, or do you just go to hospital receptionist?
So you may want to, that's why I said you can go to the medical officer or to the manager or whoever is in charge of the nursing home and say this, we want to put this up. Or you could go to the pediatrician and say we would like to put this up because it's aimed at parents of children. Right? So, and then he may say, okay, I'll give it to me, or she may say, give it here, I will have it put up.
How about schools? Putting it up.
Putting it up in schools, we haven't really looked at it because these may make the parents a little paranoid. So we are not looking at these particular posters for schools at the moment. And our focus has also not been schools. In schools, we invited the role of the bystander thing we invited. We will look at it later. So the plan is evolving as people are coming in and saying, I'm from this area, I'm from that area. So we are asking you to, if there already are people in that area, in our area there is, Aparna, one of the facilitators is there, and they could team up with her. So we are looking at least 4 people being in any particular place where you are in a public place. Going to the hospitals you can do individually, but public place we want at least 4 of you there, so you don't feel awkward. Right? And then you choose a time. You choose a time and a place of your convenience. And do it on that 19th, 23rd, 24th. And you could collect the posters from here.
So is it okay?
And for the hospital thing, we would like you to send us the list of the hospitals, because we don't want multiple people going over there. So once we send, Vilkas and myself will assign people to specific hospitals. Otherwise, it might be a problem.
So when we go and speak to them, so we can say they come from
Representing
representing.
can come in from
Yes.
yes.
Yes. And I'm guessing they would already know.
Some may know, some may not.
Some.